This is why I also somehow adopted this into my deliveries and sharing this kind of ancient ethos of the warrior. Because it's to bring into those of us reminder, warrior never kills out of sport. Never. There is even the line, the great warrior enters the battlefield with the grave expression on his face, because killing is the last thing he wants. And yet he is there to perform his allotted duty. So these soldiers to me are not soldiers. The soldiers who shoot children, who shoot elderly, who shoot disabled, right, for sport, they're just some kind of unexplainable anomaly. Unexplainable anomaly. And to me, this is exactly the domain of where the worst sort of possession took human minds quite some times ago and just moves around like Hydra. It's a possession. It's a sickness, disease, illness.
The archetype that has come in the Kriyas lately is of a female warrior. Open eyes, focused, powerful, pumped up, empowered, strong, and ready. That's how I feel after this session. So my eyes are eyes wide shut, because it's difficult to see the pain of the genocide, but they're open as well because I see it. I see the dehumanization. So the hypocrisy and the complicity and the sickening powers. Make it hard for me to unite the inner and the outer. So how do I bring the strength that I feel in the female warrior that comes through as the archetype into this world? To the collapsing state of world affairs, to the misery of cowardice, of indifference, of lies, of the importance of humanitarian principle, international humanitarian law, and human rights. The gaslighting, the reshuffling, the anticipatory obedience, the silencing, and the criminalization of solidarity. So I play with the thought of becoming a sound healer. And I can also choose to eat the poison, negativity, which could harm my nervous system. I don't know. But I would like to know how to handle that. Your advice is most welcome.
We still have to find within ourselves to somehow bring this to the highest understanding. To the highest understanding where the healing touch, where the rupture can be healed. And the obviousness of that, the magnitude of what is happening today in Palestine and has been happening for a very, very long time. In our day and age, in this particular moment in time, had brought out some of the most extraordinary figures of commitment to the cause, who are living heroes, nothing short of Like literally, these people are living heroes of our time. There is a legends of a one man, Norman Falkenstein, as you know, right? No, you don't know Norman Falkenstein? Who knows this name? Just a few of you, right? He dedicated entire life, absolutely entire life, to the record, meticulous record of all the atrocities committed by Zionist regime of Israel against native population in Palestine. He's a scholar, a great scholar, who could have forged an extraordinary career for himself. Instead, he forsaked it all, utterly and entirely. And for many decades, he's been fighting this battle almost single-handedly. He is the loudest, most clearest, and most unapologetic voice out there today. See? The reason why I'm mentioning this now is because what we are witnessing is nothing short of a true revelation. Because something which has been neatly concealed for a very long time is coming to a broad daylight. And what has been neatly concealed doesn't go back to just a few decades back. It goes way back. It goes way back where that rapture began to create this extraordinary crack wound-like. So this experiences, this what now Palestine is turned into, it literally became an open gaping wound on the collective consciousness of the planet, where it simply shows everything in its true value, in its true sense. So this is why I have said already in this room 2 years ago, in this very room, in autumn, in that video, I stand with Palestinians. And later on, that all these victims, few months after already, the victims among children began to be counted in thousands, are sacrifices in consciousness. Literally. These are sacrifices in consciousness where the critical mass is being reached when the heartless begin to feel their heart. A sheer number, it's almost like certain catastrophic number needs to be reached. It sounds absolutely inhumane and unfair, but none of these deaths are for nothing. And as we speak here, some extraordinary breakthrough is taking place in the collective level of that, what you have rightly and very, very eloquently put together. That silence, that hypocrisy, not even double standards, we cannot even call double standards. It's a perversion of everything, perversion of human values, where people are today subjugated to the treatment which has a slogan, never again. We spoke about at the very first day here in this room about, did I mention Nuremberg process, right? So it is, that line belongs to the Nuremberg process, never again. And this never again has a new meme. Never again today. Because never again is happening right now. So as we speak, just the other day, at the Venice Biennale, at the film festival in Venice, a film has been screened, which received, you heard about this, right? About Hani Rashid, the 5-year-old girl who was trapped in a car where all 5 members of her family were killed by shelling. And as she was using her mother's phone to call Red Cross of Palestine, the idea of snipers put the bullets through the car that counted in many dozens. In other words, they created a calendar out of that car. This was broadcasted last year around the world. It somehow made the news against all the odds. That not only IDF soldiers kill children, they target children. They target children. She was surrounded literally in a zone. There was no sight of what have you, of any kind of potential enemy whatsoever. There was nothing. And of course, her call was intercepted by the IDF, 100%. And the vehicle that was rushing towards her by the Red Cross to save her was shot down completely by the shelling. So this news, somehow by extraordinary will of this lady, this Tunisian filmmaker, I forgot at this moment her name, she was nominated for another movie of hers for an Oscar. She took this topic and made it into a movie. And literally almost on the eve of this film being screened in Venice Film Festival the other day, several powerful figures in Hollywood step forward to become producers, executive producers, including Brad Pitt, Joaquin Phoenix, the guy who won Oscar and gave the speech on the reception of the Oscar at the beginning of this year for his film about Holocaust, about what's happening in Palestine, by being booed by the Zionist community, by the Zionists of Hollywood. As he was speaking, he was booed there. I watched it. But what we're witnessing right now, we're truly witnessing a collective awakening from all that, but there's no name in a dictionary of any language what it can be called. Because we've been lived in the altered reality. Altered reality. All of us have been collectively lobotomized to believe into something which is, effectively speaking, is a fabricated lie. So what I personally had to come up with, because it's unbearable otherwise to live through this, witnessing what the people is going through there, is that it's this final sacrifice that is performed at the grand level. And through that sacrifice, something much bigger can be born into the world. Why it is done in such way in our day and age, for that I have no answer. For that I do not have explanation. No reason can go there. But to me it's very clear that this what happens in Palestine today, right from the moment that the idea arose to create the state of Israel, which is basically a legal occupation by a group of people with an unequivocal support of the British Empire, so the Balfour Agreement, to usurp the land, misplace people, and create, effectively speaking, a place of perpetual axis of conflict. Whatever the reasons are, we don't know, because this is where we speak now of that, what I try to convey in the Kundalini book, in some of its reflections, through that analogy of nectar versus poison, the culture of nectar and poison. And it is very clear to me that our current civilization, Western civilization, if such term actually exists, because even that has been challenged now, that even the term Western or Western European civilization, which parades itself with the slogans of liberal democracy, as its real purpose of why it disseminates its ideas throughout the world and why we go into other countries with the right to tell these countries how to live, is in fact nothing but a big lie, a perversion, an unbelievable proportion. So this notion of civilization has taken direction towards poison. This was clear to me at some point, that every industry and every aspect of our life in terms of its institutions meant to destroy essence of human life. And we're speaking way before the technocrats and AI. I'm talking about end of the 20th century still, when the formation of all these corporations and all these corporate interests, all of that. It was also clear to me at some point that evil doesn't die. The Nazism doesn't die. It simply reconfigures itself all the time. It reconfigures and lives like a hydra. You cut one head, 10 head grows instead. So it's very difficult in our day and age to even understand what's going on, because there is a war on all planes of existence, not just one plane. There's a war on all planes of existence for our clear consciousness. And there is a war against human consciousness, full stop. This to me became very clear. If 20 years ago, let alone further back in time, someone would have told me that, I would have dismissed it on the grounds of exaggeration. That there, like these conspiracy theories, that there is a, how can there be war on consciousness, like must be, everything is Shiva, so how can that be a war on consciousness? And yet, part and parcel of being alive today, this is our time, is marked by this very difficult transition. This very difficult transition. So if you're asking me to reflect anything, then there is no easy solution. The solution seems to be at once, just as you put it in a poetic and very direct way, that, eyes wide shut and eyes wide open. Simultaneously, we need to see this all, see clearly for what it is, whilst at the very same time, not allow this to destroy us. So empathy here has to be exercised 100%. This empathy has to be also translated into direct stand. Not what I was held accountable. Oh, you take sides? Not teacher. Why not two sides? Because there are no two sides. It's only one side of justice, beauty, and truth. This is the trinity of creation. Justice, truth, and beauty are inseparable. There's no two sides. There's nothing that stands in opposition to truth. There's nothing that stands in opposition to justice. It's only one side. And why am I standing on the side of Palestinians? Because they represent in a given moment in time what people of the Holocaust represented at a given moment in time. And of course, the history of the Holocaust itself was weaponized. That's the subject of one of Norman Finkelstein's books, Weaponization of Holocaust. How Holocaust was turned into a blackmail on a gargantuan level to blackmail, above all else, Germany into complete and utter submission. So Germany as a country cannot exercise even the rights to defend human rights anywhere in the world because they lost it, according to the engineers and architects of that weaponization of the Holocaust. Today in Germany, please tell me if this is misinformation, you can be arrested for pro-Palestinian speech, pro-Palestinian actions. I have yesterday or day before received a news that there is a new law is being passed by that, what's the lady? Her lady, I only know her lady genocide. Lady von whatever, the United Nations lady. Wonderland, yeah. I don't refer to her as a human being. She's a hydra. Humanity's left her a long time ago. She moves, speaks, and looks like one. This is what happens to human race. She's passing a bill now so that everyone can be persecuted for their social media posts, for even what they write on WhatsApp. Everything is now being screened. In the United Kingdom, the same. And at the same time, as we know, there is a flotilla now moving towards Palestine. First of its kind, civilians with the food to stop the blockage and the blockade of food. Because the genocide is a complete. It's not 100, it's a 200% genocide. It's killing people on all levels. Absolutely. It's no different than Auschwitz or Majdanek. Not different. Why is it different? It's only different in methodology, but it's not different in the reality and fact. But what really this is, where did it all begin? Where is it all started? Where? I will come back to this again, but to build on the Holocaust. Holocaust, during the weaponization, deliberately concealed facts which were found in the aftermath of the Second World War, how the prisoners were treated. This is the least known fact, and me having Russian name would immediately make me sounding biased. But you can open up, there is a Wikipedia page to that in many, many, many languages. How Nazi treated the prisoners of war, right, POW, from Soviet Union. Of course, many of them were Jews, but many of them were not Jews. They were of all nationalities. They were treated worse than any other prisoners of worse concentration camps. It has been acknowledged finally, and yet it never ever comes across. They were treated the worst. They were all effectively gone through the special treatment by SS because they were exercising their hatred for the losses that Wehrmacht carried in the Eastern Front. So being a prisoner of war in the hands of the Nazi machine, killing machine, was worse than any other prisoner. All other prisoners were treated differently. Rape of Soviet women were encouraged right from the beginning, the very first days of war. First days of war, not as the war progressed. Do you know the number of Soviet women raped by SS and Wehrmacht soldiers? It's inconceivable to the mind. But there is a German scholar, historian, woman, who dedicated her life work to that. She argues the number is as high as 10 million people. 10 million women, from the age of 12 to the age of 60. And of course, if you Google today, rape of Soviet women by Nazi soldiers, guess what would come up first as an entrance? Guess. Rape of German women in Berlin. Of course, it happened. There is an absolute truth to that. There are Wikipedia pages on the exact investigations and numbers of this by the Allies, by Soviets, by US military, and by the British military, all of whom committed these crimes, war crimes. I could continue. This is just to insert how Holocaust was masterminded to conceal, undermine blind and eclipse the suffering of all people of Europe, Asia, North Africa, India. How many Indians perished in Second World War? There were no regiments fighting in Africa other than made out of Sikhs. The term buffalo soldiers, you know that term? Yeah. What does it refer to? Battalions made out of African Americans in US military. That's what buffalo soldier means. Buffalo soldier, dreadlock rasta. They were formed and employed in the dirtiest of tasks, not even as other fully fledged, because this was United States at the time when segregation was intact. That's the meaning of the Buffalo Soldier. It's a very dramatic song. So when we dance reggae under its tunes, at least my children know what it truly means, the meaning of that song. So how far, where are the roots, how far the roots of all that goes? We don't know. We don't know. It goes deep, deep, deep into the very formation of this civilization we all share now. So of course, what happens in Palestine becomes like, it's almost eclipses everything. Eclipses everything, because it is not me now speaking. I'm paraphrasing that very, very courageous man who has his parents both perished in Holocaust. Both his father and mother, Norman Wilkenstein. Both of them, they have not perished in Holocaust, went through the Holocaust. In the early days, he used to fight by using this so as to give himself credibility to even to be taken, just like Gabor Mate, who is himself Holocaust survivor. He was a kid, right? You know who I'm talking about, who is another passionate supporter of Palestine, passionate, dedicated supporter who confesses to, in his youth, joining the Zionism until he realized this is nothing different from Nazi ideology, because it speaks of the superiority of one human being over another, dehumanizing another human being on the grounds of denying them the birthright of integrity, calling them rats. The same way Nazi ideology had to dehumanize other races so as to withdraw themselves or wash themselves from any psychological guilt. But how far deep it goes into the history, we don't know. It is simply impossible to see how far it goes. So today what we're witnessing now, particularly, and this is what I was going to say, is that Norman Wilkenstein, when he says, I don't only compare the treatment of Israel, of Palestinians, with Nazi treating Jews in the Second World War, I argue that it is worse. What? What? And he presents his argument why he believes firmly that it is worse. Because Germans at least tried to hide. They tried to hide. The advancement of the East Front of the Soviets was so rapid that the first concentration camp, Majdanek, was liberated as early as 1944. The very first concentration camp the world never knew truly of the horrors. Germans could not destroy this facility because they had to retreat and send prisoners into what is in history known as death marches, It happened in the winter. People walked barefooted, barely clothed, miles and miles on end because there was no transportation for them. Those who could not walk were shot dead. Death marches. Yet Norman Falkenstein says it's still worse. Why? Because Israel is doing it today in a broad daylight and rejoicing. The idea of soldiers, what they show, what they, share on their social media, how they rejoice, how the snipers count how many knees they shot. For civilians, we're not talking about military operation against, let's say, soldier facing soldier. No, deliberately injuring civilians for life. They are known as life-inflicting injury. Sniper boasts, I have shot 16 people, and he's applauded and heard and champagne opened because he is the winner of the competition. Human hunting humans. So this is what allows, what gives the incentive for someone like Norman Falkenstein to say it's worse. The humanity now sees the collapse of human value even worse because it happens broad daylight and it happens in a way of cheer where the whole majority of the population of Israel support the genocide. And there is a very large percentage who actually vocally express not enough punishment is inflicted on people. This is unbelievable. How can this be truly comprehended? It cannot. I cannot comprehend this. I cannot. I've tried. So there is no easy answer. But if you are relating this to me, it's not for me to spew out all this without any consolement. At the very same time, there has to be place in us where we still hold this together, where we still hold this so that we orient and reorient our civilizational consensus towards nectar, not poison. We've been poisoned long enough. So we move towards that consciously. And that's what we're doing. And that's what you're doing. So, good for you for bringing this out without any reservations. But you do have to be very, very clear so that this does not destroy you. This knowledge and understanding and this helplessness. But you need to be able to find a way of how you can reconcile that within yourself so that at once you see it all as consciousness. In your awareness, you see it all, you hold this all, and you take the right stand, and at the same time, you bring the healing touch. You bring the healing touch. I'm no longer under the illusion of when we speak about this philosophy and people ask how to reconcile this, there's something else could be spoken. Lesser favored, lesser spoken of parts of the Bhagavad Gita, way towards the end. The whole Bhagavad Gita, the emphasis is usually on the first 6 chapters, more rarely into the 7th and the 8th. But as Bhagavad Gita progresses, there are questions asked by Arjuna. How come if all this is, right? He's now asks questions, seeking clarity after he received the highest teaching based on all yogas, right? All yogas, from yoga of despondency to the highest yoga of union. He's asking Krishna why some people are driven by evil. And then the philosophy, of course, is there, how the sattvic, rajasic and tamasic principles at work, and how some beings will never turn towards me, Krishna says there. because they overcome too heavily by tamas. These are dark beings who will remain in darkness and die in darkness. This is not a very pretty picture drawn, but it is still belongs to this scripture. So therefore, our naivety should not extend that every human being is utterly and thoroughly human in their attributes. This is not true. Everyone in potentiality is Shiva in disguise, absolutely. But how it is played at this level of creation, at this level of shared reality, that's a different story. This is why Shaivites did not dismiss Samkhya philosophy, which is dualistic. This is why they did not dismiss these teachings on the basics of yoga that Samkhya expounds, the importance of sattva, rajas, and tamas, and their influence. Otherwise, teaching would not be truly integral. You see? So it is true that some human beings completely are stripped of any shred of the humanness, and they will not act as humans. They will not. So in other words, there's no such thing as to hoping that some of these people will recalibrate. No. But those who are caught in between, influenced by those who stand the light, those who hold the light. That's the only place where the battle means something. See? Otherwise, this is what I said already like a year ago or two, when some of you remember when I said, the side's already taken. Who remembers that? Yeah? I said, the side's already taken. If someone thinks that, there's like, no, sides already, the Kauravas and Pandavas stand facing each other. The polarization already took place. The world is already polarized, that meant, and this finale is there. How it plays itself out is, it's extraordinarily confusing. You see these characters there on the public arena. You know, like how to make a sense. What are these leaders, what are these heads of states are going to do? What each of them represent? What powers are they subjected to? So this, as much as I can relate to the genocide itself, right? That wound that is now for everyone to see. And there's nothing that can be concealed anymore. So those who try to explain it shows their level of consciousness and their level of understanding. Those who try to justify that, trying to justify unjustifiable. It's as simple as that. Let's not complicate simple things. Humanity, what it means human, is not complicated. Not complicated. This is why I also somehow adopted this into my deliveries and sharing this kind of ancient ethos of the warrior. Because it's to bring into those of us reminder, warrior never kills out of sport. Never. There is even the line, the great warrior enters the battlefield with the grave expression on his face, because killing is the last thing he wants. And yet he is there to perform his allotted duty. So these soldiers to me are not soldiers. The soldiers who shoot children, who shoot elderly, who shoot disabled, right, for sport, they're just some kind of unexplainable anomaly. Unexplainable anomaly. And to me, this is exactly the domain of where the worst sort of possession took human minds quite some time ago and just moves around like Hydra. It's a possession. It's a sickness, disease, illness. It's a deep, very, very dangerous disease. That's what Zionism is, in essence. in essence. And of course, all that, machination of, anti-Semitism, and no. The most orthodox of Jewish people are marching in solidarity with Palestinians. Not now, decades ago. I was a kid, I remember. The Seraphitic, the Hasidic Jews of New York always been against Israel, against creation of Israel, against occupation of the Palestinian people. I'm talking about 70s, as a kid growing up. So it's not anti-Semitism, but the complicity of the Western leaders and Western countries is sickening. That I'm with you. It's sickening as the acts of that machine. So, where does it leave us? The only place is to hold it all in the heart. The only place to hold it all in the heart and let it metabolize there. With a tremendous, tremendous power of empathy. So, in each and every heart that is capable of doing that, it is restored daily. This is why we cannot carry animosity. And we are tested all the time. Sometimes we are carrying animosity in trivial way, in trivial sense. Within the family, within the friends, within the relationships, we are constantly tempted. We need to recognize this for what it is. We need to be able to nip it in the bud. Because it's trying to switch off the one in whom awareness is more. So it's redirecting our attention to that petty stuff. And that battle cannot be won once and for all. That's the thing. Every day it has to be won. Every day. Like every mystic said. Every day. Only in the heart it can be held. And it's literally, this is our duty. This is the Jedi. This is the light. The keepers of the light.